Hey everyone, Cahlen here, and today I'm going to be showing you how I make my dinner. And so what that generally consists of is grinding up a bunch of ingredients like rice and lentils and spices and things like that, and putting them into an airtight container so that I can take them in my backpack, fairly lightweight because there's no water in it, and also very compact because all the spaces between like the grains of rice and stuff like that, all those spaces have been removed so more will fit in the container. So basically the goal is to have a container of food that I can just add water and maybe some coconut oil to, and heat it up and have a really good and healthy dinner. So let me show you how I do that. So the first thing is to these are the two packs that sit on top of the racks of my solar e-bike. So they actually charge the charge the bike. And inside of these are aluminum kind of shielded type containers for food to kind of keep the temperature regulated, and a bunch of ingredients. So this is kind of my food situation while I'm on the bike. I can hold more and haul more easily. But I think fractally when I'm thinking about this type of stuff. So if something happened to my bike, I want to be able to also have a food situation that I know I can rely on when I'm on foot. So let's just go through the ingredients and start adding them and go from there. First, I'm going to add the base of the dish, which is basically just white rice, organic white rice. So there's a lot of word going on out there that brown rice is actually better than white rice, and there are some reasons why that is true, but in my opinion it doesn't really balance out in the end, because the rice is brown because it still has the hull around the actual carbohydrate part of the rice, and that not only will cause gas, but also it's the part of the rice plant, the seed, which holds the most cyanide, and rice is known for absorbing cyanide pretty strongly from the soil, and so that's where that largely is going to the hull. And so if you're eating white rice, you're not getting that extra dose. So I filled the container to about halfway full with rice, and we'll move on to the lentils. So here are the lentils. I use red lentils because they pretty much dissolve when you're cooking them in water, and I really like that fact. I just kind of like to get the nutrients and the protein from the lentils without having to actually like chew on beans and that type of stuff. And there's something to know about beans and lentils and stuff like that. There are a few issues with them, one of them being that they have lectins in them, and lectins are things which there's all different types. Some of them can kill you really quickly, some of them are actually probably okay for you or good for you, but they affect everyone a little bit differently, and some of them pretty consistently cause things like arthritis and things like that. So there's lots of health effects, a lot of them negative, and so there's reasons to be concerned about eating beans and lentils. I experiment with how I feel after eating these things, and after eating red beans, I feel great. So, and that's not true for like green lentils and stuff like that. Definitely not true for things like kidney beans. So I stick with this because this is a good way to get protein. I'm currently vegan, so getting protein is important since I'm not getting it from animal sources. So now I have filled the container about 1/8 full of that stuff sitting on top of the rice. So one of the most important parts of your diet is getting as many greens as you can. There's lots of nutrients in there, lots of good reasons to be eating your greens and other vegetables. So when you're nomadic, it's a little harder to do that because fresh vegetables go bad because they have a lot of water in them, and they're also heavy. So when you're trying to move around, it's not ideal to be carrying that extra weight. So I actually buy dehydrated vegetables, which I add to this and then blend it up. So first I use corn kernels, and this stuff is actually really good too just by itself. You just open this up, take a handful and start chomping on it, and it's really soft. It's kind of like eating popcorn, just add some salt to it, and it's also kind of got that sweet flavor that canned corn often has. So I really like this stuff. Then there's broccoli, And there's lots of reasons to be eating broccoli. I can link to some articles about that down below. And then peas. So these, I could buy these in the big can like the other ones, but the store was out of stock of those, so I just had this little container of peas. All right, so let's add those and see what it looks like. Here's what it looks like with the corn, broccoli, and peas sitting there on the top. Alright, next is spices, and as long as these things are dried, you can pretty much do whatever you want, as long as you're adding salt. I'd say definitely make sure that you're adding salt and then add whatever you like beyond that. So I like to keep it fairly simple, so I use salt and keep this in this giant container. And salt's important, guys, and so you know, I think they used to say it's worth its weight in salt, so there's a reason that they said that. We're living in a society where salt's very plentiful, but it's, you know, do you know where to go and find salt? So if things broke down, this is an important thing to have. Okay, and then the next thing would just be pepper. So I use organic pepper, and I use this partly for the flavor, but also because there's chemicals in pepper which activate the powers of turmeric. So when you take turmeric with pepper, it actually is much stronger. And so turmeric has lots of health effects. Basically, it's a very strong anti-inflammatory, and basically all disease is caused by inflammation, including aging. So anti-inflammatories is a good thing to be eating, and turmeric, curcumin, some of the best things that you can be having. And I mean, I would personally say, I mean, I try and have it at least once a day, but in, you know, in pretty large amounts. So it's really good stuff. So let's add that to the top and see what that looks like. And there you are, basically a base of salt with some turmeric on top and some black pepper on top of that. And you can see I have basically a blender container right next to it, and I'm just going to dump this all in there. And now I'm going to blend it up. So I'll spare you having to listen to that loud noise. It's not very interesting, but I'm using this solar panel here to charge the blender. Alright, that's all done, and here's what it looks like. It's basically just a fairly fine powder. I actually left some chunks in there just to give it a little bit of texture when it's cooked, and also because the voltage of my battery is a little low, so the blender was having a hard time. So that's one thing that you have to think about. My blender is pretty powerful, one of the most powerful ones, and still it has a little bit of trouble grinding this stuff up, and also it's hard to haul a whole blender around on a bike and stuff like that. So at some point I think I'll probably downgrade to like a coffee grinder. It'll make the process take a little bit longer to make it, but I only have to do it once every week or two, so it's not really a big deal. So let's get on to actually cooking this. So I do have ways to cook this inside the actual truck using a propane stove that I have, but since I'm kind of, this whole dinner situation that I'm setting up here is kind of aimed at the backpack scenario, I'm going to actually use the cooking stove that I use when I'm just using my backpack. So this is a little pot, but also the lid is, it's a frying pan. It's got a little handle that folds out. And then inside, you can see there's all these folded things. So these are actually pieces of a little wood stove called a rocket stove. Stick that in there. And now I have a little rocket stove which I can run with just sticks and twigs. And you can see just right in front of me there's a whole bunch, which will be perfect. And there's plenty of space all around for me to find more. So I'm never going to run out of cooking fuel. So I went and gathered a bunch of sticks and I arranged them inside of the little rocket stove, and now I just need to light it. So I use this thing. It's got basically a ferro rod. So see, it has this little slot that you can go in, and there's a ferro rod in there, and this thing serves to kind of shotgun them into a very specific location. So another nice thing about this fire starter is that this end is full of cotton, which is drenched in Vaseline. So that is going to light very easily using just a spark, and it's going to burn for a long time. So it's going to be help everything else get caught on fire before it goes out. So there you can see the cotton sitting there on top of a stick, ready to fall once I've lit it. Now at this point, I would fill my kettle with water and put it on top and bring it to a boil. So I pretty much got the water boiling, and so now I'm going to add about 2 spoonfuls of coconut oil. So I always carry a giant jug of that stuff with me. Getting fat in your diet is actually a very good thing. I personally think that most of your calories should be coming from fat. And yeah, coconut oil is great too in this type of mixture because this is carbs, and I'm also breaking them down, so it's making them more readily turned into glucose, which would affect insulin levels and that type of stuff. But adding the coconut oil actually kind of slows down that process. You can think of it kind of like slowing down the burn. So actually I'm getting calories from carbohydrates for longer because my body's taking a little bit longer to digest and not injecting me with a bunch of sugar to make me kind of go crazy all of a sudden. So the coconut oil came out in kind of one big glob, so I'll just count that as 2 spoonfuls. Let that start melting. And now I'm just going to add about 7 spoonfuls of this. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm stirring it really frequently. I don't want it to clump up, get stuck on the bottom where it'll get toasted. And after about 5 minutes of boiling and stirring, I will take the frying pan / lid and place it right over the top and just kind of let the fire die. At this point it's going to have coals and stuff in it, so it's going to kind of slow cook it. So this will probably take about 20 minutes. So it's pretty much done. See it cooking there. And I'm just going to flip this over, put it on the ground, and pour myself a little bit. Cools a little faster while it's in this dish. Just put that back on there to stay warm. And there's dinner. So that's how I do dinner while I'm living out here in the wilderness. Currently living in my truck, but I'm planning to downgrade, I guess you could call it downgrade, but I kind of see it as an upgrade to just living on my bike. And so this type of kind of ingenuity, I would guess, like arranging things in a way so that everything's light, but there's a lot of energy in the food and that type of stuff. That's really something that challenge is something that I really enjoy, and I think that's where I get most of my joy in my life right now. So I'm really happy to be able to share that with you. And just like if anyone's interested in trying this, it's quite simple. And also if you were able to grind those grains down to a really fine powder, you could make a thick soup out of this, like in the morning. Put it in a thermos, and you could be basically drinking really healthy and calorie-dense soup just while you're walking from place to place. So that's my dinner. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.